Hey Mark, how's it going?
Fantastic. Thank you, Al. Thanks for having me.
I hope you're having a great day. For our audience that don't know who you are, do you mind introducing yourself, a little bit about background, where you come from, and what do you do right now?
Sure. I'll go way back. I
Yeah, please.
started in IT back before, put it this way, I started in IT when there were cards and they had card readers. It was a long time ago. Um, so I started in that business right out of high school because my dad owned a computer business.
Hmm.
So I sort of just became IT naturally. And then I worked my way up to IT director at a publishing company, and then actually production director, which was a job that is one of those things where you rise to your level of, oh, I hate this job. So I rose to the point where I'm like, I wish I'd just stayed IT director. I really like that stuff. All these other things I didn't like so much. But as soon as the web came out in like mid 90s, I was actually working for a defense contractor then. And I'm like, I don't know what the deal is with this internet thing, but I freaking love it. I got to find some way to work in this. So I thought about coding in there. There were we made some early attempts actually with the defense contractor I worked for to do some remote uh, parts maintenance on howitzers and things. But the concepts were strong, but the speed and the software and the internet speed and everything else just wasn't there in like
Hmm.
90, 98, 99
No, it
to
wasn't.
do
No.
that. You could do it easily now, but
Sure.
I just got excited about it. So I went to work at the publishing company as the IT director, but I started an e-commerce business because it was something you could do in the evening.
Yeah.
And one of the first ways I got business was running Google Ads. So
Hmm.
I ran Google Ads. I remember I started some Google Ads. I didn't pay attention for like 3 days.
Yeah.
I
It was
logged
called
in.
AdWords at the time, right?
It was AdWords. Actually,
Yeah.
I started with something before AdWords. I don't know if it was
Was
Double
it
Click,
over double click overshore or was
Overture.
it overture?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that. And then Google Ads came in. I don't know if they bought them out or if they just decided, wow,
I,
this
I
is great.
think Google AdWords, if I'm not mistaken, someone needs to look it up, may have bought DoubleClick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was working
Yeah.
in something and I thought this is a cool concept. And
Yeah.
then when Google took over, then it was on steroids because
Yeah.
now they had volume.
Yeah. Yahoo
Yeah.
bought Overture and Google, I believe, bought DoubleClick.
And
But
I
yeah.
advertised on Yahoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a thing then.
Yeah. Yahoo used to be a good search engine before it stopped being a search
Yeah.
engine. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good search engine. And um, so I started launching Google Ads. I launched some Google Ads, and like 3 days later, I checked my e-commerce site because I had just started it. It was a basic ass site. And I'm like, I had orders. I'm like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
So I just kept leaning in on that. And then, of course, Google Ads, I was all e-commerce then. So Google Ads eventually came out with Frugal. Do you remember Frugal? It was their free shopping site, and you could just
I
load up your
do. I
products.
do. Now that you're telling me, I do remember the name. It was a free shopping site.
They converted into like Google Merchant Center and then Google Shopping. They kept the infrastructure, but then they said it's not going to be free. You can run your ads on Google Shopping or run your
Yeah.
products. Though I understand there is still some free. I don't
Yeah.
do a lot of e-commerce, but there's some free.
There's a free feed and a paid feed, and obviously, just like anything else in Google, the free feed is being deprioritized in a favor of the paid one. So if you search a product, majority of stuff you see in search results are going to be paid, but amongst them, you're going to see some organic listings as well. So it's kind of like it's at Google's mercy what they want to show,
As we all are.
as we all are.
Uh, so then a friend of mine who was doing some coding and maybe some early marketing said, hey, I need help with some Google ads for a builder. And I'm like, sure, I'll do that. So I started freelancing a little bit. And then
Hmm.
eventually it came down to, do you want to stay in IT or do you want to switch over? And that was right around 2008 when the market crashed and IT jobs were really tough. I mean, I could get an IT job, but not one that paid like I was used to making in IT. So
Yeah.
one day I just rewrote my resume and sent it out there, and all of a sudden I start getting offers from marketing
Yeah.
companies left and right. I'm like, okay, I'm a paid search guy now.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting because that's how I got into the whole SEO, SEM business as well. I was I got my first job as a QA spec. I knew how to code a little bit from just being a geek. So as a QA automation, I think that's what my title was. And then I'm like, oh, this stuff is awesome. Let's go to school for it. And when I got a degree in computer science, by the time I graduated from computer science school, I'm like, nah, I don't want to do this. And I launched an e-commerce website and a couple of e-commerce websites, and that's how I learned SEO and SEM. And then after one of the businesses didn't work out, the other one I sold. After I did that, I became an SEO SEM person, and that's a few years after you. But it looks like our we have very similar journeys, going from tech to marketing, which actually I think is one of our strengths because we understand the tech limitations and background, and we can talk to tech people and manage tech projects a little bit, which is very crucial for a successful search marketing
There's a
campaign.
lot of tech as in
Hmm.
marketing. And then I think one of the things that drew me to Google Ads was the fact that you had a single interface and you had
Yeah.
data available. I had to learn SEO for my website, for my e-commerce business, which I later sold. And I remember desperately searching around. I eventually found Moz and Rand Fishkin's Whiteboard Fridays, and I just
Yeah.
studied that religiously. But one thing I realized is I'm going to have to use a third-party piece of software to kind of give me an idea of what's going on. And then I'm going to have to get links over here and do these things over here. Whereas Google Ads was one interface. I controlled, back then, I controlled a lot of things. I
Yeah.
control fewer things now.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
you were in control, and it made sense because I was a data guy and used to having that. And so Google Ads really lent itself well
Yeah.
to that IT background. And I'm not a creative in terms of like having any design skills or anything like that. So I was never gonna lean into website design. I did do one website and I realized right away this no, never do another website. Not my thing. And
But
actually
you
the
can, but can,
difficult,
but you can easily work with website designers because of your tech background. You can exactly tell them what you need, and they can produce that for you, right?
yeah, things like no, don't put the phone number in tiny little numbers at the bottom of
Exactly.
the page.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
put it up
Yeah.
here. Put it up here in
Yeah.
big numbers. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
The
want
same
people to see the
way.
phone number.
The same way, because when I was a coder, I didn't care about some of this stuff. And when I became a marketer,
Mm.
I'm like, no, it matters. And I think that really helped me become a better marketer and compared to others. So that's really awesome. So tell me, what do you do now? Are you still doing Google Ads? Is it something that you do, or are you more of
Yeah,
a
actually, yes, I own inbound revenue. We're
cool?
essentially a Google Ads, both white label and direct clients. So we work with agencies, we work with direct clients. We do some other things, but Google Ads has always been the core of what we do. It's our primary reason to
Yeah,
exist. And yeah, I was just in Google. I really enjoy being in Google Ads accounts. Obviously, running the business is a little more challenging. I think you and I were texting about this
sure.
earlier. Like I've got people texting my phone, hey, is this zip code in this? I'm like, dude, I'm the wrong person to ask that. We have a help desk, we have a chat. You got to ask those people that because I'm on like 17 different calls. But I try to stay in touch with all the accounts, see what's going on,
Yeah,
and continue to learn because things
yeah,
are constantly changing, and you really have to be on your game now
yeah,
to be effective at Google Ads. And we do
sure,
mostly lead gen.
sure.
Honestly, that's enough right there. We do some e-commerce, but we don't do a lot of YouTube, don't do a lot of display, don't do a lot of that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Lead gen is there's enough right there in search and
Yeah,
knowing all the things related to that. And it's
and
crazy because I've been doing it for 20 some years and I'm still learning
sure.
things.
No, and I'm glad you brought it up because I feel like it's really hard to be good at everything because things are changing a lot. The user behaviors are changing, user trends are changing, technology platforms are changing either to respond to these behaviors or they want to be more profitable. For example, I remember back in the days, Google would run less ads above the fold, and you could actually see some organic results. And
Right.
now everything you see is pretty much paid. So as an SEO first person, I also know SEM, PPC fairly well, but I'm mainly an SEO person. If you have to say which one you're better at, I would say
Mhm.
SEO. Uh, I always tell my clients, don't do just SEO anymore. Maybe like 10 years ago, I would have just said, hey, don't spend money in Google Ads, just do SEO. But now I'm like, no, even if you rank number one, it's very likely that you're not going to get the type of traffic you want because, especially on mobile, if you look at
You only have so much space. You
and
literally have so much.
and a
Yeah.
transactional keyword, sometimes you got to scroll a lot to get to the first organic listing. Let's say if you're looking for let me think about a keyword like a landscaper near me. You're going to see a bunch of like local service ads, and then you're going to see a bunch of Google ads. Then you're going to
And
see
then
Google
you see maps
listing.
with ads.
Yeah, maps. And then by the time you get to the number one, it's like you have scrolled so much already. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about the transition of Google Ads from the days where it was AdWords, where you could actually see your competitor bids. I remember I could actually see how much my competitor was bidding so I can outbid them if I wanted to, and to which was a lot simpler to today. It's got a lot more sophisticated. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it was now there might have been iterations before this, but I remember as far back as you basically just had like very simple text ads that I think were two or three headlines, one description, period. That was
Yeah.
it. They didn't rotate. They didn't. Now they have responsive ads and they
Hmm.
rotate, and you have 15 headlines, and then they grade your ad copy, which is, or ad score, which is really
Sure.
interesting because you can pin headlines, meaning you can pin the headline one, two, and three, and they're never going to change. And you can emulate an old style ad that way, and they'll immediately hit your quality score.
Yeah.
But the thing we look at is it converting?
Yeah.
So people will look and say, there's a lot of, I guess one thing that you have now is there's a lot of information inside of Google Ads that someone who's not particularly versed well in Google Ads, like quality, they just
Yeah.
want you to look at them. But people look and say, oh, my quality score at 73%. And you're like, it has nothing to do with anything that's happening in your campaign. It's literally just happens. Did you apply or dismiss the recommendations they made? So that's pure marketing. Let's go with broad match keywords. Let's
Yeah.
switch
I see
to,
a lot of that.
yeah,
Increase your budget. Yeah,
that's a
and
popular one. That's a
right.
very popular one. Um, but if you go back to the old days, it was simpler. You saw all your search terms. Like if people
Yeah.
searched something to trigger your ad, you saw it. Exact match keywords were exact match. Phrase match meant that they had that phrase in there.
Yeah.
You had broad match, but you had broad match modifier, which was a great option.
Yeah, I love the modifier. I was really bummed out I took it out. It was my favorite.
Google platform is doing. So
Sure.
we're trying to get them the best results possible. And I feel badly for people that run their own campaigns that
Yeah.
don't really know what they're doing, which is most of them, because Google's going to feed you to the lions out there, metaphorically, and
Yeah.
they have a pipeline right to your wallet if you're not really sure of what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, 100%. I remember that I had a boss when I was more of a junior level person, and I would read a lot of Google articles, and I got Google AdWords at the time it was AdWords, Google AdWords certified and stuff like that. And this person, this boss, I forget his name. It was like obviously it was so long ago, over 10 years ago, maybe more. He said, "Oh, you don't want to do everything Google tells you to do because they are at the end of the day, they're a publicly traded company. They need to make and Google AdWords at the time was it's the bread and butter. They need to make money, right? They have those quarterly reports, so they have to satisfy that they need to meet their financial goals, and so you want to take the advice with a grain of salt, which kind of goes back to what you're saying right now. It's like, hey, review their recommendations, but you really need to have some experience and expertise to determine if those recommendations are good for you or not, because some of them are they may be helpful, and I've seen helpful ones, but a lot of them are helpful for Google, not you, right?
Yeah, there are sometimes you'll see like, oh, here's a keyword that you could add, or here's a keyword that is in conflict with a negative keyword. That type of stuff can be useful. Most of it's not, but it is worth looking at. But what happens sometimes is you'll have a nice campaign performing nicely, and then the client will go in and just apply all, and then boom, it'll
Yeah.
automatically apply all those. And then they call you in a week and like, my leads have dried up. And then you go in and you look, well, yeah, because you accepted all their recommendations, and that just destroyed it destroyed a high performing campaign. And once you get one working, it's like the Hippocratic Oath, you want to do no harm. You want to
Yeah.
just tweak things at that point or run an experiment or something. If it's working, you've achieved something. And when I say working, that means you're tracking conversions, and those conversions are quality conversions.
Yeah, we actually have a policy at our agency, and this is a new agent policy is that hey, if you're taking over, so we manage campaigns in three different ways. One is just straight out consulting. You're on your own. We come
Mhm.
in, we audit it, review it, get on, I don't know, bi-weekly, monthly calls with you. The second one is more of a hybrid. There's an in-house person there, but those people like assign us specific things for us to do. Like, hey,
Okay.
you update the landing pages, you help us with adding not filters, negatives, things of that nature. The third one is full package and a full managed service. And those we actually go and kick the client, like we change the settings. We go to MCC, we change the password, we actually put in writing in our agreements, like you cannot touch a campaign. You got to let us know and give us at least one business day to make the changes. If there's something you want to do urgent, you can grab the phone and call me. But you got to plan. You cannot go in there because, and we are not in the business of explaining to you all the time what we're doing. We give you our weekly status report and monthly KPI reports, and we jump with you on the calls on bi-weekly basis. But you cannot do things because now they have too many cooks in the kitchen, right? And then that's going to
Right.
cause a problem. And yeah, and if you don't have the deep expertise and experience, like you with years of experience, kind of seeing the evolution of Google Ads, and now you got to go clean that up, and it's just not a very efficient way to do. So why do you think Google does it? Just about their end of the bargain to make more money, or do you think there's also user trends are changing a little bit, and people are with AI and voice search and things like that, people are searching differently.
Frankly, I think people are searching exactly the same as they always did. Now, you do see some trends, more mobile. Obviously, you
Yeah,
remember when mobile was like 5 or
10%.
10% of your
Yeah.
search. Now it's 50, 60% of your search
Yeah.
or more, depending on what niche you're in. Um, they are reacting, I think, sometimes to, now they tell us this. My problem is I take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt for what they tell you, because I see them do so many things that are counter to, like, they haven't put in a lot of changes in the last 5 or 10 years that I've said, oh boy, I really love that. That's a cool new thing you did. Mostly it's like, oh crap, you're taking another thing away
Yeah.
from you. But one
Yeah.
thing that in a conversation with a Google support person who's at the partner level, so they usually know more. They said, for example, you're going to see fewer search terms in the future, and we already don't see many search terms. But they said what they have to do is state by state, people might have, like Illinois might have one privacy restriction, and California might have another one. So they just make it blanket because they don't want to get in trouble across any of the 50 states. They don't always know where the searches are coming from. So they just reduce for private, they say for privacy purposes. Now, having
Yeah.
said that, I just saw a legal ruling. I don't know if it's a ruling yet or if it's leaning that way, but it's basically like they have some sort of ruling against them because they're not giving clients the data with which they need to make sound marketing decisions. Search terms were one of the things that they mentioned there. You need to show people the actual search terms and what it actually costs, um, because people can't make judgments. And if people don't know the difference between keywords, keyword phrases are what you put in there, like landscaping near me. Search term is what someone uses to find your ad. It might be a landscaper with, kitchen experience near me or something like that.
Yeah.
So your search terms don't match your keywords exactly. They're the actual search terms that people use to trigger your ads, and they keep pulling that away. So it'd be really interesting and beneficial for us if we could see more of that rather than less of it, because you know, that's very good data to have. You know what to add as a negative, what to add as a new keyword, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was in a one of the campaign search terms. One of our PPC persons is expert. She's on vacation, so I'm filling in for her. And I went to search, and I'm like, why are we showing up for these keywords? We have no broad match running. The best we have a lot of phrase match and exact match, and I'm seeing some search terms under where is it under insights that is so irrelevant, and it feels like this actually going against what people thought Google Ads was going to be. About 5, 10 years ago, I was telling people that, hey, Google is going to make it easier for anybody to run their own ads. And now I see that there's more need for people like us, you and I, um, to help them run their campaigns because you're going to get a lot of irrelevant keywords. And like you said earlier, people aren't searching that much differently. They may have changed the devices, the way they search, but they're
Hmm.
still searching very similarly. And to me, it looks like, and this is just an informed opinion, but it's not fact, that Google is trying to um, expand beyond just ads. And that's probably why they renamed beyond keywords, my apologies. And I think that's why they probably renamed it from Google AdWords to Google Ads. You know, they want to do a more non-keyword oriented because there's more money in it. There's display, there's a bunch of other stuff going on, which
Well,
is
that's when they came out with like PMax to try to
yeah,
get on YouTube and everything else. The problem is those they may work for they may work for shopping, but most of the time everything comes right from, google.com is where your leads are going to come from.
yeah.
And they keep putting in these attempts to make it easy for someone to just create a campaign, which is great, except that they make it easier for them to create a bad campaign, essentially. The other thing
Yeah.
I see when you talk about, well, is Google doing this on purpose? I feel like with the amount of data they have, which is massive, the programmers
Mhm.
they have, the skill they have, if I'm running a plumbing campaign in Dallas, Texas, even if I'm using Broadmatch, I shouldn't get keywords like plumber in Atlanta.
Sure.
You have to know that Atlanta is not Dallas. Like,
Right.
there's no confusion there. A third grader knows that Atlanta is not Dallas. So if your sophisticated algorithm is still letting me get an $85 click on a search for a plumber in Atlanta, there's something wrong there.
Yeah, and you've already set up your campaign. This is like, hey, I don't run it in
I
Texas, I run
wanted
it in
people in
Atlanta.
or frequently in this location. And plumber near me, is, but plumber near me is Atlanta's not near me if I'm
Yeah.
in Dallas.
Yeah, I think like campaigns with performance max or whatnot are probably, I want to say they're more of a higher funnel type of campaign. If your focus is just to generate lead, like you said, you're a lead generation company, then your performance max campaigns will probably drive you leads, but not the quality you're looking for. But let's say if you are a well, your KPI isn't lead, you just want more awareness, you want to create like demand, you want people to know about you, then performance max is okay. And I think that is about your goals of your marketing, right? Do you want to create leads or do you want to create awareness? Like I think that's really important before you launch your Google Ads. It's like before you launch any marketing campaign, you put your money behind marketing campaign, you want to figure out what is the goal of the campaign. And is this going to generate calls so I can get business, or am I doing some branding? And I think that's a pretty important thing. I tell my clients all the time. That's you need to know what your goals are before you do,
And some
film.
companies do want branding and awareness,
Yeah,
but your average local service company,
exactly.
give a rat.
The plumber, like the example you gave earlier, or landscaper, the example I gave, they just want business.
They just
Very.
want your phone to ring.
Yeah, exactly. And tell me about quality. You are a lead gen company. How do you guys determine good versus bad quality
Well, we capture
leads?
everything. We use what converts whenever
Yeah,
possible. We
yeah.
use landing pages and what
Hmm.
converts so that we can control that experience. When you lose track of it is if someone says, I want to use my website or something like that, and then you have to use Google Tag Manager and you're just tracking a click. But unless it's medical or legal, we're typically recording the call. And what converts even has a little AI thing where it summarizes someone called and they wanted this service and they set an appointment. So You can just read that and know it's a good lead. It also has the ability, we provide our clients with the ability to log in. No one does, but they can, and say, this was a quotable lead. Here's the sales quote. Here's the actual revenue. So they can do that and give us information. And then we also see the form leads. So you can
Yeah.
just look. Our goal is to get people marketing qualified leads as often
Yeah.
as possible.
And
So if you're getting a
do you
bunch of
use a
junk,
CRM? Do you use a CRM or a marketing
well,
automation?
we use what converts, which acts as a very light
Oh, okay. So that's what
CRM.
you said. What convert? Sorry, I
It's
apologize.
similar to Call Rep.
Yeah. Yeah, okay,
Similar
got
but
it.
better.
Got it.
Or we use high level in many
Yeah.
cases. The only challenge with high level, it's a great marketing automation piece of
Yeah.
software. It's got a CRM, it's got all these capabilities. It's trying to get the average small business person engaged with we get excited on the marketing side about all the cool things you can do. The clients are often less excited than we are about
Yeah.
the gee whiz features
Sure.
of marketing. So they literally just want the phone to ring, and if we can get them to, we get them to engage and tell us, was this a lead? But we can look. We can look with what converts. We can actually look. See, does this seem like it was a marketing qualified lead? And that's how we tell. Because one of my mantras, and I have several, but one of them is conversions aren't leads. Google Ads people will look in their campaign and say, look, I got 17% conversion rate. I got 28 conversions. But if they're crap and there's someone calling for a job or someone from out of area, or that's not a lead. That's just a capturing of an event.
I was having this conversation with my brother yesterday because he's in a or it wasn't yesterday, last weekend, sorry. And he's a loan officer and he works for a loan, what do you call it, broker.
Yeah,
And so they run campaigns on Facebook, on Google Ads. And they're like, we get a lot of leads, but they're like, oh crap. And when I listen to it, I'm like, what are some of the campaigns? They actually let me see. And I'm like, hey, you're not getting leads, you're getting contacts. That's all you're getting. And you have to understand the difference. That leads is when there's an intent beyond your product, whether now or 6 months or 9 months down the road. All you're getting is contact, you're getting somebody to, I think one of the meta campaigns was like, and you want to look at, there's a new listing in your area. Check it out. And then in order to do that, you got to click on the form and Meta automatically fills out your form. And then you see it, it counted as a lead. I'm like, that's not a lead. You just got a new email. You got a new contact. That's not a lead. A lead is when there's an intent. It's like, hey, I want to make an appointment. That's a lead.
yes. I
Yeah.
have this problem, this pain point. Can you solve
Yeah.
my
And
pain point?
yeah. And even then, when you have a lead, that lead may not be a marketing qualified lead because it may not fit the categories. Like let's say if you don't do VA loan,
Hmm.
that's a lead, but it's not a good lead for you because you don't do VA loans, right?
Right.
So whether that you can actually the lead it becomes qualified, whether you can actually do something with it. So I'm really glad you brought it up, and I think those are some of the things that people need to ask themselves, like, why do I need to use Google Ads? They really have to understand the strategy behind it. And I find that a lot of times the problem is going in there just wanting to spend money without having a goal, without having a
Right.
strategy. And
And
I
as
think,
we ask all those types of questions going in,
yeah,
not that it's surprising the number of businesses that haven't really thought it through.
yeah,
So I sent out an email recently. I forget how many things are. It's like you should know these 7 or 8 things before you start Google Ads. And it's like, do you have a sales process? What's it
yeah,
cost per lead that you can afford? What's your close rate? Can you afford to run for several months at break even or at a loss? Because it's going to take a while. If you kick
sure.
in a new bid strategy, it's got a 14-day learning period and it's
Hmm.
still not up to date. It's still not zoned in for 30 to 40 days. And Google will tell you not to touch that. And Google will tell you to do things like don't set a max click.
Yeah,
But when you look at a client's account and there's one click for $340, Google doesn't have to answer to that client. We have to
we have to.
answer to
Yeah,
that client. So then you have to do things like set your max click cost so that your clients don't freak out. However, you just affected the algorithm
yeah,
because they want it to just run wild and free, like,
And
like
that
banning
and
campaign.
that thing resets every time you pause your campaign.
Now, there's some settings because we stick to search and lead gen. There are some, and then I do want to come back to something we talked about earlier, which is branded campaigns and settings they took away from us.
Yeah.
But in a search campaign, typically we want to, we typically don't set a goal because when you set goals, it really doesn't do anything inside of the campaign. It's one of the options when you set up campaigns. What's your goal? We just say no goal. We build a search campaign because if you select a goal, then it tries to take you down a pathway. So we just select no goal has
You're
no
talking about
impact.
when you're starting a campaign, it says whether
Yes,
you
when you
want demand gen, I don't know, this like
right.
you just do no goals. Got it. Got it.
No goal,
Yeah.
just do search and then make sure you don't include search partners. We used to include them, but now what we've seen is if you include search partners, it's going to just
Gets you a lot of
it'll eat
traffic.
up all your money on search partners.
Yeah, I
And
don't even know who
then,
those search partners are. They used to be more transparent about them. I don't even know who they are anymore.
oh, it's, yeah, they're anything could be a
I
search
remember there was a
partner.
time you could click on it, I would, or it would take you somewhere. You could actually investigate who they were. Like I think like one of them was Excite, like the former search engines. But now they like they don't tell. Oh, we have search partners. I'm like, no, thank you, uncheck. I actually asked you. I'm like, should I uncheck this? You're like, oh yeah, we stopped doing that months ago, or something like that.
Well, it used to be you get like 5% of your traffic from
Yeah,
search partners, and they might get you some leads. But
yeah,
now it's like 95% of your money will go to search partners if you don't monitor it. And then always turn off the display network, of course.
yeah,
Because if you want to run display ads, but that's different than search. But
sure.
they still have it in there, even though no one should
Yeah.
ever do that.
And by def and it's checked by default. You got
By
to remember to
default.
uncheck the search partners, the display. It's just like Google trying to upsell. And again, this all these things that you and I are discussing is the reason you and I are in business. We've been through this. We've made the mistakes. We've learned experience. We've been yelled at. And now, hey, come and use our experiences. Hire us. Let us help you. Because by the time you do your learning, you might actually have to file for bankruptcy because I can,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, because Google just can spend your money, and I'm like, I don't trust this machine learning stuff. I really, it almost makes me look like more nervous because before you used to have a max amount of dollar you would spend per click. You could do the
Right.
math and you would get really close. And these days with this all machine learning and automated bidding and all that stuff like that, I'm actually more nervous. And I don't want to waste my clients' money. I don't want to go over the budget. And especially if you just launch a campaign, and the learning is just really long. And I guess maybe you can give us a little bit tip about some tips about how we can go about things like that. What are some of the things we can do? Is it just checking the campaign every day, creating alerts? What are some of the things I can do? Creating scripts, something I think we need to do more in my agencies. Maybe the campaign needs to pause when it gets a certain amount of dollar.
Yeah,
Can
there's some
you?
things you could do, like if you're worried about click fraud, you could set an alert up like if my click-through rate's above 20%, because that's super high. You
Yeah,
could get 20% on a really zoned in old campaign. But something like that. The main things I think are watching your search terms, add negative keywords as much as anything else, and getting those initial settings right. We'll either launch with manual CPC. It's still
yeah,
very valid. The one interesting thing about manual, and that's where you'll go in and you can set every keyword bid individually. It's the only way to know exactly what the market's willing to pay for a click. Because if
that's
you go
good to
max
know.
clicks or you go max conversions, then it's into algorithm world. Manual CPC is the only way to know is someone willing to pay $30 for that keyword? Because after a couple of weeks, it'll say, you're bidding low or whatever. So you have to raise it up to get visibility. But that's a lot of management. That's why a lot of people go with max clicks. And there's nothing wrong with max clicks. The theory with max clicks, or one of the negative things with max clicks that I've heard, is that since it's max clicks, it might try to get you more cheap clicks, and cheap clicks are not necessarily your best clicks.
Sure.
Um, because you said I want the maximum number of clicks I can get out of my budget every day. So therefore, it's going to go for the lower quality search phrases or less intent based, maybe. But then you get a $340 click, and you're like, maybe not.
Yeah.
super important. So I would start with either max clicks or manual CPC. But if you're going to start manual CPC, you really have to monitor because you're going to have to
Yeah,
adjust bids. So max clicks is easier. Start with exact match and max clicks. That's a fairly easy way to start. Check your search terms often. If you go phrase match, check your search terms a lot, you know, um,
yeah.
because it's going to pull up all of the competitor keywords and things like that.
And I've noticed that too because phrase match, like let's say for an attorney, we have, let's say that one of the things we're bidding on is a trust attorney, right? And
Hmm.
that's a phrase match, living trust attorney. And I've seen name of lawyers of other agencies that also do trust in the search terms. And this particular client specifically told us he doesn't want to do any conquesting. He doesn't want to do any competitor. He doesn't want to bid
Right,
on competitor because in his business, if someone is searching Mark Kelly, they're looking for Mark Kelly. They're not looking for Al Sefati. So he doesn't
right.
want to he doesn't want to dilute his very limited budget into bidding on Mark Kelly. He's like, I don't want to see no lawyers showing up for my stuff. So because of the phrase match, and it's not even broad phrase match, we have to monitor the campaign almost every other day to make sure these guys don't pop out. And
Yeah,
it's just so frustrating that Google phrase match isn't what I remembered it was, which is like, hey, you know, you
not
know,
at all. Not at
trust,
all what you remember.
yeah. Why is this company showing up? It feels a lot like broad match, and I but I've noticed is that Mark is when I go exact match, then I'm making it too tight and I'm getting no impression.
That was what I was going to say. Some niches, there's a lot of search, or if you're targeting a bigger area, exact match will work. But sometimes you're
Yeah,
not getting enough search volume.
yeah,
And
especially
so then you
local.
have,
If you're local, right?
if you're local, then you could go max clicks and see if that makes a change, or you go phrase match. One trick is because phrase match, I always call it competitor match now because there's so many competitor names end up triggering your ad. Um, you can do some keyword research in advance and search GMBs in advance and create a negative keyword list just of competitors. And that way you've done your homework proactively. It's still going to find more, but if you can find 100 competitors in that area, you can create a negative keyword list, apply it to your campaign, and then you're going to get fewer of those clicks up front rather than waiting for them to show up and then adding them as a negative. So you can be proactive. It's time consuming to go
Yeah,
through and look for all the landscaping companies in Dayton, Ohio, or all of the all the trust attorneys in San Diego or whatever it is. But it's one way to do it. Um,
and
exact
I've
match works
noticed
if
that you
there's
also
enough.
have to. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, if there's enough search, exact
Yeah.
matches.
Yeah,
Is a good
exact
place
match
to
is
start.
probably a good thing for at the national level. And when you go local niche, like let's say even in LA where I'm at, it's a pretty big area, but like the search volume for some of these keywords drop. Because if it's at a national level, it's about, I don't know, 2,000 searches a year. LA would
Oh
definitely be
yeah.
less than 1,000. And as a thousand, that doesn't mean that's 1,000 clicks. It means a subset of that is going to turn into clicks. So yeah, the max click is good, but I noticed is that when you do this, when you over rely on Google, Google wants you, let's say if max click, if your setting is on max click, I've noticed that in order to get you the most click, they bring the weirdest search terms just to get you the number of clicks. And I think it's just like you really have to monitor this thing. They keep changing the settings. And once you figure out like a good place where you add, leave it. Don't stop touching it, right? Because you don't want to change it anymore, right? Because you finally find where you need to be.
Hmm.
And that is the next challenge we have. Then all of a sudden, the clients, our office is closed for a holiday, and next month we're going to be a bunch of people on vacation. Can you pause our ads? And I feel like we've got to go through this again because the learning begins again.
Starts over.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's very interesting.
I urge people if they're going to do that to just like if you're spending 150 bucks a day, just spend 30 or 50. At
30,
least
40.
let us continue to run these because otherwise, when you come back in January and you want all that business, it's
Yeah.
going to be February before it's gone through that whole learning
Yeah,
process again.
100%. And if you have a marketing automation and CRM, those leads that are you getting from these campaigns while you're gone are not going to be wasted. They're going to go
Right.
straight to your CRM. You can always contact them later. And you can always retarget them later, which kind of takes me to retargeting. What do you think about Google retargeting campaigns versus the other ones out there?
Well, honestly, we don't do a lot of retargeting. And the reason we don't is this. Most of our people that we work for aren't even maxing out their search budgets.
Yeah,
Like you look at their search impression share and maybe they're at 30%, 50%. So I'd rather spend their budget to get more fresh leads than try to get someone who's come to your site, looked at your site, didn't want to engage with you, and then try to entice them back in with an offer or something. So unless you're close to maxing out, we generally don't do remarketing or recommend doing it. We'll do it if people want to do it. And it seems to work just fine. You have to plan for it. So you have to make sure that you create an audience and you build that audience the way you want to, because you have to have an audience to target before you can run remarketing. But
yeah,
honestly, that's our answer. We don't run a lot of it. No one asks us for it. And typically, if you're not spending 80, once you hit about 80, 85% impression share, you that's good. You don't want to get 100% because it's going to be super expensive. Unless you're an attorney and you want your name on there every time, then
yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
matter what it
Yeah,
costs.
yeah, I've had to have that conversation with attorneys and other people. How come I don't, when I Google my name, I don't see my ad? I'm like, it's actually a good thing you don't see your ad. It's made it so you don't see your ad because we want the customers to see your ad. And when I explain it to them that way, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But it feels like part of being a consultant or agency person is that you have to always be educating your clients. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you do that. Is this something that you
Shut up and
do?
listen. Yeah, that's what I do.
That's awesome. Hey, shut up and listen, pay your bill on time.
One of the things that I do now is I'll create videos where I'll walk through. Here's where we started. Here's what we've done. Here's the campaigns we've run. Here's the experiments we've run. Here's the landing page we're sending. Here's what we're tracking. Here's our negative keyword list, and just sort of overwhelm people with data. One of the challenges of Google Ads is because you can go in there and look at it, and you can get anyone else to look at someone else's campaign. People often follow along behind you. Why did you do this thing? Why is this keyword in here? Well, a campaign's never perfect. Literally never. I can
Yeah,
look at any of my campaigns and say, man, I could do this and we could do that,
sure.
we could do that. Or they'll say, this keyword, we had this recently, commercial roofing, I think it was, this keyword was paused. That's what we do. Like, well, no, that keyword was paused because it got 25 clicks and never converted, and
Yeah.
because it's not intent based enough. So
Or your
you
offer
see
isn't
something that
compelling.
looks,
Yeah.
yeah, there's so many things that go into it. That is one of the people can come behind you, and that's fine. We do people's campaigns in their Google Ads accounts so they can see we're transparent about it. But what you don't want to do is spend a lot of time explaining why I can't see my ad when I search for me.
Yeah.
Why is this keyword bid to this and that keyword's bid to that? Like, you really want me to spend my time making your campaign better. The other thing is, my calls were down today. Well, this is a game of averages. I can't do anything except maybe increase your budget to get you more calls today.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
doesn't work that way.
When that happens, I get texts. I'm like, you want to spend more money? We actually have a rule here for some of those clients. So we work with different clients, just like you. Some of them are they understand this stuff a little bit better. The ones that don't, I've noticed that when they send us email, how come my ads isn't, I'm not seeing my ads or whatever. We have a rule. It's like, don't answer the email. Let's see if they remember the first time.
That's a good strategy.
If they might forget by tomorrow because it takes some time for it to ramp up. There's a lot of AI, machine learning involved. There's search impression, especially if you're running local campaigns. For that day, there may not be enough people looking for a probate litigation lawyer,
Yeah,
or you're being cannibalized by local service ads, or
right.
that you're not spending money or Google business listings or whatever, or maybe you're just not very
Your
attractive.
reputation
Your
might suck.
reputation, yeah, it might
Yeah.
suck, or yeah, and that kind of takes me about mentioning AI, machine learning, do you guys use AI in your campaigns?
We've started to use it in to help us with ad copy. We never
Ad
use AI
copy?
exclusively, but I will use ChatGPT and say, I want 30 headlines for local landscaping and I want um, features and benefits. It'll give me 30, and it's just better than I am
Yeah,
sometimes.
and
But
faster, a
out of
lot
those
faster.
30, I might take three because
Yeah,
couldn't
sure.
just you couldn't blindly take them and use them. And then I'll switch it up and I'll use the same prompt, but I'll say, humorous, because
Yeah.
that helps your ad stand out a little bit if you have somewhere like, it says something that stands out a little bit. One of the things that we do too is use a piece of software that lets us look at other people's current ads running today in that market and see what they're putting in their ads, because you don't have to write the best ad. It's like the old story. You don't have to be faster than the bear. You have to be faster than the guy behind you.
Yeah.
So we just have to write a better ad than what the other people are running.
Yeah.
So we
Sure.
need our ad to have some numbers in. We need it to have a nice offer. We need it to be appealing and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Um,
Yeah.
that's the key, I think, to ad copy. So we use AI for that, and probably for some for like landing page copy. You just have to be careful, as you know, because
Mhm.
AI gets a little ahead of itself
Yeah, it
sometimes.
does for sure. Yeah,
It
100%.
wants to elevate everything,
And
you
you
know?
also have to be careful with some of these AI tools that I've seen. I saw an ad like, hey, fire your SEO and SEM agency now. You use this tool. And I'm like, okay, let's see what that tool does. And they do everything Google does, the Google ad, the machine learning stuff. I'm like, okay, this is one way for you to really go bankrupt. So you got to be careful with the AI. Again, you use it, but you be in control. You don't want it to control you, right?
We've
Or
used
else
it a
we'll have
couple of times
Terminator.
for images
Yeah.
where
Canva or
someone
any of
has
that.
nothing for their new auto detailing business. They've got no pics or no pics for the landscaping company. If you use AI often, and if you continue to like refresh, you can get some pictures that don't have like a zebra in them or something like that that look good enough to put on a landing page. Better sometimes than a stock image, which is the worst thing
Yeah.
to do, but you
Yeah.
have to sometimes if someone has
Sure.
no Google business profile, they've never done any business, they haven't, or they take crappy pictures. So we use it for that every once in a while. I would
Yeah.
say I don't see it taking over humans' jobs. Well, if you're a writer, you're probably screwed, but it's just an augment to what we do, I would say. And I think it's
Yeah.
hugely helpful for ad copy because honestly, after you've built out a campaign and you've done keyword research and you built ad groups and you've done all this, and now you have to get 15 headlines, you're like, crap,
Yeah.
man, I'm burnt out. So it
Yeah.
helps.
We actually ended up hiring a writer. And I think if you're a writer, you just got to change your role a little bit to become more of an editor. You want to brief ChatGPT, whatever AI tool you use to create a content for you. And you got to become more of a prompt person, right? They call it prompt engineer.
Oh,
You
really?
don't,
Is that what it is? Okay.
yeah, that's a new title. You just don't tell them, hey, write me an article. You actually have to keep telling it and training it and give you an output and keep going back. You basically become, and at the end, you edited it still and to become less robotic. Instead
Right.
uncover 10, instead of using those words like that, uncover or discover, like you
All
make it
those
more,
languages that we
all
don't
those
really
languages that we
use.
don't
Yeah.
usually use. I think writers just might have to change their role a little bit. Instead of writing from scratch, getting the writer block, you can produce a lot more content and become more of a prompt engineer, prompt editor, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's what and because of that, we're producing a lot more content. I just came back from a conference. Look, AI isn't good for you. I'm like, no, AI content is good as long as you are in control, not it telling you what to write. Like all the blogs now I write on our blog, I get AI, but I tell it exactly what I want. I'm like, hey, this is what I want to
That's
say.
interesting. So you're not just relying on it. Like if I read an article about Google Ads that's
Yeah,
written by AI,
yeah,
I'm like, that's written by AI. They
yeah,
used all the right words and everything, but they didn't say anything that particularly made me think they know what they're talking about.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
where that
yes,
large
I
language
go in there.
model.
This is what I want to say. I want to say, like I wrote an article about
Mhm.
enterprise SEO audit. It ranks number one in Google as of yesterday. And the reason it ranks is even though we use AI to write it, we got AI to assist us in writing it. I wrote a brief for it. I said, these are the points I want to say. I put a one line next to it. And then AI went and added more context to it and padded a little bit. And even then, I reviewed it a couple more times and I edited it, prompted AI, and then I sent it to my editor. I'm like, okay, now change, edit it again, make it more
Yeah,
even.
if you didn't know your subject matter, you wouldn't know what to ask it.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between the good content of AI. So we should, well, the point I was trying to is that whether it's for Google Ads, SEO, or other stuff, embrace AI, but you be in charge. Don't let it be in charge of you, because then you're risking a
Well,
lot.
have you noticed? I don't know if you see this. I use Facebook a lot for
Yeah,
business, and everyone now is an AI agency. And I'm like, I don't even know what the hell that is. I don't think you
yeah.
know what the hell that is.
Yeah, I being a computer science guy, when I get on the phone with some of these people, they don't even know the fundamentals of AI. They don't even know the differences of AI,
They
generative
were
AI.
crypto experts 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
2 years
Yeah.
ago. I think they're going to be experts again. Have you seen the price of Bitcoin recently?
Yes, they're going to start coming out of the
They're
woodwork
going to
now.
come back again. They're going to be AI crypto. There's going to be a whole new thing coming up now. Yeah, talking about that, what tools do you guys use for like keyword research? Is it just Google's tools or do you use
I
any
still use
tools?
the Google Ads Keyword Planner. I think it
Yeah,
knows as much as anything. There might be times I'll use a free keyword tool just to see if I can explore and find something different. I've just never found one that's better.
yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. We use SEMrush and SpyFu, other type of tools when we are doing competitive analysis and when we're doing SEO, but when we're building up campaigns. But we rely a lot on Google Ads because they know more data, obviously, than third parties, right? And they have incentive for you to feed it more keywords so they can make more money. So that's a really good point. And I guess we have only like a few minutes left. If somebody wants to get become successful in the Google Ads campaign, what are some of the general guidelines you have for them? Some tips and insight, other than, hey, come on, hire me. What are some of the things they should do?
Yeah, that's the number one.
Yeah, come on, hire
I
me.
think you have to. One thing that I think is really hard for people is if they're not going to run their own campaigns, which they probably shouldn't, is you have to know enough to be able to vet your contractor or agency. Because trust me, most of them don't know what they're doing. It's a
Yeah,
thing they've added on to their agency and they're not very good at it. We see it all the time. But it's hard for you as a business owner, you're running your roofing company to be able to vet someone and know that they know what they're doing. So
yeah.
that's a challenge. And then having the budget, the patience, the sales process so that you pick up your phone. I mean, that's like, I don't know how many times, that's like the number one marketer complaint is like, pick up your damn phone. Because you paid the money, you paid us.
Or
You
don't
got
put it on forever on hold because people are gonna hang up.
Or don't answer, hey.
Hey,
We
hi,
see
yeah,
that with contractors a lot. Hey, yeah, you can't do that. You spend all that money, you spend $200 to get that lead. And then patience, and then feedback is a great
yeah.
one. If you can give us feedback about these are the leads that we got, and here's what our thoughts are about those leads, because otherwise we're just going to keep generating the best leads we can without your feedback if you're not going to give it to us. Feedback is great.
Yeah, that's very awesome. So, feedback, training them, enabling them, help sales enablement, like you mentioned. Where do people learn how to become better Google Ads people?
YouTube.
You
Yeah,
just go on
YouTube.
YouTube and
There's a
and
few courses, YouTube. You just have to follow. It's like anything else
follow
on the
Mark Kelly,
internet.
right? And Imad
You have to
Revenue.
follow Mark Kelly or Rob or Surfside
Yeah,
PPC or
yeah.
that sort. There's certain people. It's like when I was trying to learn SEO and I'm like getting all this different information. You just have to find someone that has some credibility and follow them.
Is that why you bug me every morning?
Yeah, that's why I'm like every morning texting you like,
Yeah.
Al, how do I do this search engine stuff? Yeah, it's a challenge, I got to admit. But then again, if you're a business owner, you probably shouldn't be learning Google
Yeah,
Ads.
that's so important. I actually One of our legacy clients, I started working with him when he was only spending $500 a month in his Google ads, and he was paying me $500 a month to do his SEO, SEM, bunch of other stuff. And it was when I was just getting into this as a freelancer, and $500 is always a good money. Maybe not now with the inflation, but like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, it's good money when you have a full-time job. That
Right.
$500 is additional money that you make that you can do it at night. So I was okay with that. Now I have grown him to be a much larger client, and he spends a lot more in everything, Google Ads, SEO, everything. And the only thing he did that is different than then is that he hired a marketing manager or coordinator.
Okay.
He got himself out of that loop. He hired a marketing
Mhm.
coordinator or assistant. That person helps with all things marketing. And we worked with that person to run SEO and SEM campaigns. Things have got a lot better. If you're a business person owner, you shouldn't be running your own campaign. You should at least
No, the
find an
worst people to
agency.
work with for future agency owners and contractors, the two worst people to work with are the person who ran their own campaigns and thinks they're really good, and then they hire you because they're
Yeah,
just going to be up your butt. And the other worst person is the guy who, on their initial sales call, says, "I'm not a micromanager. I will never micromanage you."
yeah,
They're telling you, "I will micromanage the living crap out of you for the rest of your life." So those
yeah.
are two things to avoid if you're getting into this business.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think we're running out of time. Maybe tell our audience one more time where they can find you and what scope of Google Ads work they can expect from you if they ever wanted to work with you.
Uh, inboundrevenue.com, and you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or
Cool.
YouTube. Mark Kelly. Well, I think look for Inbound Revenue if you go
Yeah,
on YouTube. I try to put a bunch of videos up there. I'm active on
nice.
Facebook, Twitter, and somewhat on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Cool. Well,
And on
Mark,
this podcast,
and
on
at
this
this podcast.
podcast.
Yeah, we're gonna have you again when we have more specific topics on around Google Ads or any other topic. But I think we might have some sessions about just performance max or about like more specific things. So I look forward to having you back on again. Or maybe I actually want to have a session about the harmony between SEO and SEM because I think this is more important than ever.
That's a good discussion to have.
Yeah, so we should
Mhm.
definitely have you back on. So I look forward to that. Again, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be in touch again for future podcasts.
That sounds fantastic. Thanks, Al.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care.